Charli XCX is quite an interesting figure to me in modern pop music because from the outside I've always been a bit meh on her music, but she has a massive following, like really huge. A lot of people love her. I've personally just always found her to be experimental, especially with her most recent output, but it's not really done all that much for me, especially that number one Angel that came out early this year. The Vroom Vroom EP that everyone seemed to love didn't do that much for me. I mean, of course, I'm a fan of Sophie, and Sophie teaming up with Charli XCX is quite a remarkable thing, I think, for modern pop music, especially considering Charli XCX is like a mainstream artist that's had multiple chart-topping hits, and to have someone like Sophie collaborate with Charli XCX to me is pretty damn cool. And going into this album, I heard a few of the tracks, thought they were alright, and listening to this album, I'm actually quite impressed with what I've heard in a weird way. I'm quite happy with this album. I think it's really fun. It's a fun album. The album opens up with Carly Rae Jepsen on the guest feature, and I'm sure the internet are gonna go wild about that collaboration. Definitely, yeah, they will. And Carly Rae Jepsen's vocal appearance on that track was really good. I loved her verse. That was my favourite part of the song. It's just the track opens up with some auto-tuned vocals from Charli XCX. Not really into that. But the beat to this song was really kind of cool. I liked how it was quite dark and a bit like menacing with the drum beat. I thought it was really kind of cool. It was just a shame that the auto-tune did take me out of it a little bit. And I'm going to be honest, a lot of the vocals on this album do sound very yelped. Like, Charli is just going crazy on this album. Like, she is like screeching and yelping like something like that anyway. And although those moments aren't really for me, mostly because I just think that it's ruining the great production coming from A.G. Cook and a few tracks as well from Sophie. Like, the production across this album is so good. It is right up my street. But just those kind of vocals that Charli puts on these tracks does ruin it a little bit. But tracks like Out of My Head, just catchy as hell pop tracks, honestly. Tove Lo on this song, don't even like Tove Lo, but she sounds good here. Just, yeah, hella catchy song, honestly. Really good pop track. I got it with Cupcake and a few other features on here. Man, Cupcake, she comes through, honestly. On a lot of tracks I hear from Cupcake, she just is a great rapper, honestly. Like, I just feel like she's one of those artists that I'm not really inclined to enjoy, mostly because a lot of her lyrics are just like so ridiculously over the top, but just her confidence is just so good, and she's not that ridiculous on this track. It's just, I think she sounds so good on the beat, and the fucking hook on this track, oh man, this is like really experimental. I think this album is all over the place. It like jumbles around with like the experimentation on like some tracks, and then you've just got your straightforward like pop tracks like Out of My Head and Porsche, which I do really like. I like Porsche a lot. That one and Out of My Head are the two favorites for me on this album, but just the experimentation that she goes through is really impressive. I do kind of wish she stuck in one lane though. Like, we do get so many different approaches to this style of music on this album. Like, it's just a wonder where she's really trying to go with it. But I suppose Pop 2 being the title is kind of like a sequel to pop music in that sort of sense, in that kind of like, oh, this is actually like the next step, you know, like the next step in pop music. I know her album was called Pop, but I feel like Pop 2 is also a bit of a play on words in that sort of sense. And I think the thing is with this album is that like the flaws to this album are so apparent, like just from listening a few times. Like I said, the vocals at points, some of the hooks aren't that catchy. Like, there are obvious flaws, but I feel like the flaws work in this album's favour in a really weird way. Like, I think that without these flaws, I don't think it would have been polarizing enough for me to like listen the whole way through. I think it kind of needed those messy elements for me to be captivated by the music and just sort of thinking how impressive it is what's going on, because it's in a way like Young Thug's Jeffrey, in the sense that it's flawed in many ways and isn't a perfect album, but you kind of appreciate the flaws and just the experimentation going on nevertheless. But the other issue really is this album just relies a bit on features. Like, honestly, I just think Charli XCX could have just took this on her own, but there are like people like Tommy Cash that come in, and he comes on that verse sounding exactly like R. Kelly on a remix, Ignition remix, whatever, that like song from 15 years ago. It's a great song, but like hearing it on this album, like a guy trying to copy that same flow, was just a real off-put to me. And the closing track has these harps at the beginning. Like, is this a Joanna Newsom sample? Because it sounds so much like her style of music. It's so beautiful. And then the end of the track, I had something on my hand there. What the fuck was that? I do not know. The end of the track has this like wailing auto-tune singing, and it actually has got this pain to it, like sort of like a Kanye West would do on 808s and Heartbreak, or some of Future's songs where the lyrics are so like self-deprecating, where she's just like every time I fuck shit up I blame it on your love. It's just that sort of like really like just hard to digest type thing. That's just like a realization she's come to, like, oh god, like I blame it on you even though it's me messing it up. I'm not like insanely in love with the way that moment sounds on the album, but I do appreciate it for what it is. But the harps on that track, man, ooh, whoa, they're so nice. So yeah, overall I'd say this is my favorite Charli XCX project. Honestly, I think this is the one I've come out with liking the most songs, because usually I'm not that into her music, and this album pulled out at least 3 great tracks that I'll return to a lot. It's just I'm wondering if like in a year I'm going to be going back to this as a whole. But I think for just the production value alone, I think this is worth your time. I enjoy this. Not perfect, not great, but I do enjoy it for what it is. I'm gonna go like a C plus, maybe rising to like a slight B minus, but C plus seems like the safest grade for now, because again there are a lot of flaws to this. Even though I think they work in the album's favor, I'm not really gonna be heavily playing this in my rotation. Solid though. Pop 2 by Charli XCX is like a good album. I think you should check it out if you like Sophie's production and the PC music realms as well. Hannah Diamond, that type of stuff. Carly Rae Jepsen too, she's on this album and there's a bit of similarities there. Kero Bonito, all that kind of stuff. Go listen to it. Let me know your thoughts on this. Yeah, tell me what you thought of my review, if you agreed with me, if you disagreed, whatever. And that's it. Subscribe to the channel for more reviews and have a good day.